there's a few chaver asked shilas on the middle sifim, and also I saw on the WhatsApp chat similar questions were asked. So we'll try to dig in a bit over there, try to explain at least even clearly what's going on over here. Obviously, it's a very tifin yanimda. Trying not to get too lost, and if I go off track, just pull me back in. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so basically Sifim, it starts halfway through, no, that's with Sif Gimel and Dalid, right? Or somewhat, yeah, part of Sif Beis, and then Gimel and Dalid. And then in Sif Hey, it speaks about the Indian, the Dafka Yisrael, the ones that dig Medir B'Tachtoinim. Before we get to Yisrael, what's the Dir B'Tachtoinim, and what's the Avodah here, and what's the Hasbara Seinyan? Okay, so first of all, anyone specific shilas on these sifim? Ganze Bittel, okay. Warum schon gefragt? Ah? Saying that the Hazard comes from the Tzimtzum itself. Saying the Chayr doesn't come from the Tzimtzum. Oh, you're saying Tzimtzum on Atzmus. Yeah, what's a Tzimtzum on Atzmus? Right, so that's the first shayla pretty much everyone asked. That the different shittas in Indian Tzimtzum, right, the famous letter of the Rebbe, I'm going what's the shit of the Alter Rebbe? What's the shit of Chassidus Chabad? That Tzimtzum lav kipshutoi in the oyer. But in the moyer, there's no Tzimtzum. Right, ha-moyer bi-esgalus. Ha-moyer bi-esgalus. And what's the hasbara brought for Amor B'Izgalos? Or we also had in Basilagani Chafei, Amor B'Izgalos, that the Gam Noshim Amiyaretz say Baruch Hashem, and right that the Eibishter is pashus by them. Here we come and say that there's a Tzimtzum on the Atzmos. The Chiddush of Elam Hazeh is Gam Atzmos Hu Behelim, and that's the Iker Chiddush in Tzimtzum. Shemaylam Ala Atzmos. Right, this is Mailam on the Oyer is not such a Chiddush. But this is Mailam Ala Atzmos is a Chiddush. Mailam Ala Atzmos. How is it Mailam Ala Atzmos? Chayra Amoyer B'Izgalus. The Etzem is B'chol Moki. 1. 2. He brings this lashon here as well. He brings it in Basi Lagani Yud Aleph and other Mamarim that are the same sugya. Right? That when he gives the Hasbara, why can't we say that Tachlis HaKavana was El Misel Yoinim? So there's a few different biyorim, right? Remember, it's Basakani Yudalet, there's Sif Dalet, there's Sif Hey. But in Sif Dalet, there's 2 biyorim, and then there's 2 biyorim in Sif Hey, but it changes a bit. But what's one of the Nekudas that he says there in Yudalet and other places? We mentioned that here, that's from Tanya. But then the vart that he says is that Lamaila is Giloyim, and the Giloyim, right, either the Lashon is the Etzem is Muvdul Minyan Giloyim, I think that's there in Sifhei, or that Giloyim are Mailim on the Etzem. Right? So L'cheira, Giloyim are Mailim on the Etzem. Meaning the Eilam Yisrael Yoinim, the Giloyim are Mailim al Etzem. That's where the Etzem is not B'Yizgalus. But Eilam Hazeh, where there aren't Giloyim, so it's not Mailim al Etzem. Right? L'cheira Mamish Oyis is Punk Farkert in many Mamarim. Right? That the higher elam is, you can't say that that's where the dir lo yisbarich is, where the etzem is nimshach, because it's giloyim. And giloyim are mailam ala etzem, right? Pashtos, right? An adult that has more giloyim, an adult that has more seichel and more midas, they're more developed character, human being. So their etzem is less, right? Whatever the etzem, if the etzem is the etzem emunah, or the etzem is the etzem nekudas achayis, whichever context is, but the more character someone has and the more complex someone is, the pshittas atzmos is less there. Yeah, the ish pashat is pshittas atzmos. The bal seichel, the bal midas, you don't really have it. So giloyim are mailam ala etzem. Here we say that what's the chiddush of Elam Hazeh? The dafka does that is the etzem behelim, right? So Elamai. Obviously, when we speak here about the etzem being behelem of us meret and under erte that giloyim is mailam ala etzem, or that hamar biskalos lamat, we're speaking about a different kud of helem, a different kind of helem. So we'll put down the side. We'll get back to that. I just wanted to put that point because that's something obviously that comes up. Another shaila is Kama v'Kama have asked, what's the shaila in the beginning of Sif Dalet? Right, beginning of Sif Dalet in the Kovetz in the bottom of page 30. Achadayin Tzarech Lahavin. What's the shaila there? First of all, Pasha Pshat. What's the shaila? What's he asking? Yeah, Pasha, just translate into English or Yiddish, or you just say the words in Hebrew, whatever works for you. Yeah. He asks, L'cheira, every world is tachtin, b'yachas to a higher world. So if you want a dir b'tachtoinim, so every world could be considered a dir b'tachtoinim. Make a dir netzilus, and it's tachtin b'yachas to keser. Make it in keser, it's tachtin b'yachas to akudin. Go all the way up to agol before kedim atzimtzum. It's always an element of tachtin. So first of all, what's the shaila? Meaning, what were we thinking? In the previous sif, he brings Tanya, Nisav Kadosh Baruch Hu Liyis Leidir B'Tachtoinim. There should be a tachtin. Tachtin can be b'makim, right? It's not about space. It's not a spatial thing. It's a lower level, lower floor. It means a madrega. That we're talking about Elam Haza Agashmi, which is tachtin madrega, the biggest hester eri yisbarich. Then the context tachtin is in the context of Gilui Likus, because that's what it's all about. What Lashon has ikar akel. The ikar is Gilui Likus. Right? When we speak about higher or lower, what do we mean? It's all about what is more connected to the Eibishter, what gets less in the way, what's more transparent and reveals its source, and what's less. So Elam Haza is the tachtin b'madrega. Kachas helam hester. Fine. That's why the Savak Baruch Hu is a dir b'tachtin, because he wants the lowest, the place that is helam hester. Kommt and Sif Daled fragt, every world is a tachtin on some level. Yeah, but we want the tachtin, not tachtin on some level. Right? What's the question? Okay, now let's say he's coming and he's asking, you could have the biggest tachtin, but you don't need the biggest tachtin. The Eibishter wants a tachtin. So you have a tachtin here. Nadir tachtin. Here, you got your tachtin. There's a bigger tachtin. There's always bigger idiots. Yeah. He's enough of an idiot. Yeah. The helim elikos. There's enough of a helim on the truth. Okay, so then what's the answer to that? So the answer is no, it's not good enough. Why? Because the higher elements are Gilui HaHelim. So you can't reach Atzmos. Masha'enke Elam Haza. What about Elam Haza? Tachla has a Helim Ezra der Chrichok. Okay, so therefore what? And there's a Helim on Atzmos, he says. He goes on, he says a Helim on Atzmos. Therefore what? So this pretty much goes throughout the whole sif. Ganz feine arichas, geschmack arichas. That here we have a helim on the atzmos. So when you're mevar elam haza, you take away the helim, you come to atzmos. Because here there's a helim and a helim even on atzmos, so when you take away the helim, you reach atzmos. Right, 3 lines from the bottom of 31. Because they are Gilui HaHelim, they're Giluyim. So Esirit on Atzmos, they're not Mailam on the Atzmos, and they don't become a Dir ala Atzmos. First of all, what does that mean? Elam Haza is Mailam on Atzmos, so therefore it's a Dir for Atzmos. Right, that's a bit counterintuitive. The Eilam Yoinim, according to this logic, the Eilam Yoinim are not Mailam on Atzmos. They're not Mailam on the Oyer, but definitely not Mailam on Atzmos. So Atzmos shall feel very comfortable there. No. Eilam Haza is Mailam on the Oyer, not only the Oyer, on the Atzmos, because he's Mailam on the Atzmos, so they're Greicht Atzmos, and therefore it could become Dir ala Atzmos. Right, so other than saying the word Atzmos 5 times, it sounds like a bit of a, how does that work? What's the logic there? Okay, and the higher worlds? You're saying it's not even Mailam? it's so disconnected from Atzmos. And what would that mean? What does it mean it's so disconnected? That's what he's saying the whole time. That he's saying that the Chiddush in Eilam Hazeh is that because the Makir of Eilam Hazeh, it's this Havos, comes from the Tzimtzum. That's the main Chiddush of the Tzimtzum, that's Mailam ala Atzmos. He says, the Taka Na'atzos Nimtza B'chol Makim, even after the Tzimtzum in Eilam Hazeh, but the Pulsat Tzimtzum is that in Eilam Hazeh it shouldn't be felt, which L'chera implies that a higher world that somewhat is felt. So then that's great. If Atzmos is felt, that doesn't make a Dira. What's the whole, what does Dira mean? What's Dira b'tachtoinu? Right? Dira means that he feels at home, he's comfortable there. He's able to express himself. So he's able to express himself only where he's Nelam, Mashenk in the higher worlds. Right? So what's happening here? And what are the different stages? Okay, so that says that a lot of his written is somewhat cryptic and bekitzer, even though there's an arichas asbara, but when it comes to actual var, it's a bit bekitzer. So I can't say, and it's not mugis, I can't say that it's definitely the pshat l'chayr. This is basically what's moved over here, and in other places it seems to be at least I'll say one oifan or two oifanim how to understand the mahalach hadvarim. First of all, like this. Perek Lamed Vav Tanya, Mudazo Ismaim Razal, that the Tachlis Bria Selam Hazes, Nisava Kadosh Baruch Hu Leis Dir B'Tachtoin. Why did David create the world? Because he wants a Dir B'Tachtoin. Okay, then he goes on and he says, right, that Tachtoin means the Indian Hester Eiri Yisbarech. Tachtin means a world where there's a total helam on the Laikos, and that's where and that's where he wants a dir. Then he goes on and says, bottom of the page, the whole process of Seder Ishtalshalos, having one world, another darg, another sphere, is not for the higher world. It's not for Elam Sal Yoinim. Why? Hoyel velohem yerida me'er panav Yisbarech. Okay, let's put that on the side because it's an important statement. We have to understand what that means. Hoyel v'lahem yerida me'er panav Yisbarech. Rather, the tachlis is Eilam Hazeh Tachtain, which in this world kach olah b'rtzein Yisbarech. The Deivasher wants nachas ruach kadiskafia sitra achra v'ishapich hashoichel inahoira. That dafka in this world will be the skafia and ishapcha, and here the gilui oir Hashem will be meir in the mokim achoyshech, in a place of total darkness. Yisrei no'er min achoyshech. So it's a much greater gilui, because when you have the darkness transformed into light, or either light seen in the darkness, or nachtifer, that the darkness itself is transformed into light, it's a much greater oir. Okay, so 2 points. First, we'll discuss the issue with Eilam Sal Yoim, and then the Maila of Eilam Tachtoin. So first of all, what's the issue with Eilam Sal Yoim? Hoyel v'lahem yerida me'er panav Yisbarech. What does it mean? Hoyel v'lahem yerida me'er panav Yisbarech. So the emes is that it seems that Chassidim, it's hard to say clear what the in the Mamarim Hasbara is, but the way it was learned, the way Chassidim understood in previous doiris was different than the way we understand it. And Be'ikr, the way the Rebbe taught it in the first Maimer, very clearly in Basi Lagani Yud Aleph. That Hamal, the beer, Hoyel v'lahem yerida me'er panav Yisbarech, was like this. That the Tachlis can't be for the Eilam Sal Yoinim. Why? Hoyel v'lahem, because to them, Yerida me'er panav Yisbarech, because to them there is a Yerida from the oir. How could we say? Let's talk about Keser, Arich. Yeah, Arich is it. Arich is the point, is the goal. He says no, you can't say it's the goal. Why? Because to them is a yerida. There's a lower level after it. How can you say that's the goal if it doesn't finish there? If the whole goal of the Tzimtzum and Seder Ishtalshlos is to reach Arich, so let's get down to Arich and stop right there. Right, we'll have the Tzimtzum, we'll have Ak and Akudim and whatever, yeah. And Atik and Arich, full stop. The goal Atzilis, let's go down to Atzilis and stop there. Why is there after Arich? Why is there Atzilis? And why is there Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, Gashmi? Why are they all here? So Hoyel V'Lahem Yerida Merpanim Yisbarach is, since to them there's Vaiter a Yerida. There's a greater Yerida that happens after them. So they can't be the Matara. What the Rebbe learns in Abasi Lagani, and the Cher Azay is also before in other places, is Hoyel V'Lahem Yerida Merpanim Yisbarach. If to understand, the language V'Lahem is not from them, like to, they themselves. Hoyel V'Lahem Yerida Merpanim Yisbarach. Since they themselves are a Yerida Merpanim Yisbarach, they are a Yerida. And what's the lesson there? And you can't say that, you can't, the lesson Yudalv is, you can't say that the Kavanah is V'Shvila Yerida. Right? The Kavanah is V'Shvila Yerida. The oir is in a great place, right? The oir is the ganze gilui in a very high level, and then the oir goes down and is nismayit, and there's less gilui because there's a yerida. How could the matara be for yerida? Now, it's a big chiddush. It's a big chiddush. This new beer that the Rebbe gives. Why? Because the beer that L'cher was learned before, it fits sort of right in. And it makes sense. How can you say that the goal is, if we're starting from stage 1 and we go all the way down to stage 10, how can you say the goal is stage 5? If the goal is stage 5, which should we go 1 to 5 and it's finished by 5? Why would there be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Why would there be another 5 steps? Obviously, the goal is to finish all 10 steps. But if you say the Pshat Hoyel V'Lahem Yeridim Merpanim Yisbarach is, you can't say that the Kavanah is for that specific Darga, that specific Oilam, because that Oilam, the Gilul Likus in that Oilam is on a lower level than higher Oilam is. What's the problem with that beer? I can say, one second. Your issue with Atzilis, or your issue with Arich, is that there's less Gilul Likus there than in the higher worlds. So what's your solution? Your solution is Elam Haza Gashmi, Shkoyach, which is what? The Tachtein Shein Tachtein Lamatam, the greatest Helman Elikus. The greatest Helman Elikus. Which is a bigger Yerida. So the problem with the higher world is that there's a Yerida. So what's your solution? That they are Yerida. The solution is let's go to a bigger Yerida. How is that an answer? How is that a solution? That's been negaya to the issue, the first side, the half of the problem with Ilm Sol Yoiner, or what's lacking in Ilm Sol Yoiner. Now been negaya to Ilm Haza Tachti. Why does the Eibusher want a dira b'tachtein? What's the answer? Why does he want a dira gilul likus dafke in the makim of the greatest choshech? What's the reason for that? What's the answer? The Taivas can kash in it, right? Where does it say that? The Taivas can kash in it. Right? So it's a word that they asked Alter Rebbe about what's the point? I'm sorry, what's the point of this Taiva? I said if Taiva can kash. But in Tanya, it's not really what it says. In Tanya, it doesn't say if Taiva can kash in it. He actually gives a pretty decent asbara. What's the asbara? I read it before. The asbara is that when there's a skaf yisiderach and a sabach hashechel in a hoira, then it's yisunor min achayshech. That's asbara. We see this in Elam Hazeh. It works that way, right? If someone's in darkness for a long time, these hostages came out, they didn't see the light of day for some of them for over a year. All of a sudden you see oil. The oil is number one, you appreciate the oil a lot more. But not only appreciate the oil has a lot more meaning. The oil tutufa sachmer, the oil has much stronger pu'ula. Alachas kamakama, when it's not only oil seen in the darkness, that the darkness itself is transformed into light, it's a whole new level of oil. It's a mer dikakunz. Right, you have the mashal is brought in Chassidus, Kamim Pamim, the mashal of Tzipar Medaberes. I think over here. Does he bring him in the Maimer, in our Maimer? No, it's later in the Ara. Yeah, they're not sure. In the Ara 34, Ulay Huva Dugma Mi'ilim Meshach Tzipar Medaberes. No, the Tzimmer Beres, 1 second, is saying Tzimmer Beres brought inside the minor? Huh? About the different dark, huh? Tzimmer Beres, yeah. We get to different Indian. The Tzimmer Beres. The Tzimmer Beres, there's a special geschmack of the Tzimmer Beres. People will pay a lot of money for a parrot. Look at what's he saying. He's saying nonsense. Your little kid could say it a lot better. No, it's not because what? Because there's a chiddush here. The chiddush is a ma'ila ta chiddush. So the vart of Dirab Tachtoinim is the way it's mevor in Perek Lamed Vav is that there is a ma'ila, there is a chiddush in Dirab Tachtoinim. The dafka, the tacht, and dafka, a place of Helen Hester, comes on Makim of Gilalikus. So on the one hand, we see in Tanya, we see that there is a certain hasbara. Le'idach, Alter Rebbe said, there is no hasbara. So in one of the Marim, the Rebbe Taka says that it's 2 dargas in Dirab Tachtoinim. There's a darga in Dirab Tachtoinim on Perek Lamed Vav, which there is epis hasbara. At least it's nichnas in Tam V'das, even though that itself, Alter Rebbe writes, Ola B'Tzoyni Yizbarach. Right? Even the hasbara for Dirab Tachtoinim is only because he decided. Because we're talking about the atzvos. In atzvos, there's no rhyme or reason. Right? The whole concept of Tam V'das doesn't exist. Only because he decided. But he decided that should be slavish in some level of Tam V'das. That's one level of Dirab Tachtoinim. Then there's a higher level of Dirab Tachtoinim, which is nisave. There's no hasbara klal. L'mayla mitam v'das. There's no hasbara, because at the end of the day, because that hagufa is really, the hasbara is that the Eibishter enjoys a good parrot. Right. By us, we see a chiddush where nispol. You see a parrot. It's cool. You see whatever any bar chiddush, something you don't expect. Right? What's a joke? Why do we laugh at a joke? It's like especially a riddle that you don't see it coming, right? When you don't see the punchline, it's what's funny. Why? Because it's a chiddush. You don't expect it. You're looking one direction and something comes from a completely different direction. So by us, a chiddush is out of our box. The Eibishter, a chiddush makes him happy. It's like, first of all, mikni mani v'ashalem. There's no, any chiddush comes from him, right? It's all, there is no chiddush. The teva is from him, the nest is from him. So ultimately, by the Eibishter, any hasbara is not real hasbara. So you have to come to this l'mayla mitamadas. I'm saying a few different yon. I'm going to try to bring it into the Maimer, explain how it goes in our mind. Okay, now, in the first, so now in our Maimer, in Sif Gimel, so the first Nekud that he says is that what was will men da Tachtenim, that he wants to do Tachtenim b'madrega. That Olam Hazeh there's no Gila Likus. And in order to be mevar, and in order to get a Gila Likus, you have to have a Yagia. It's behelim. Fine. So when you're mevar Olam Hazeh and you're meisir the helim, then you come to Atzmos. And the Olam is al Yoim Hoyel Lehem Yirdim Merpanim Yisbarech. So through the higher world, you can't reach Atzmos. Only a Gilui Oyer Shel Fierech Eisei Olam. So it's a Yerida Mer Panav Yisbarech. Olam Hazeh, you reach Atzmos. Okay, so what's the Hasbara here? According to the Sif Gimel, right? You can't take the same Hasbara as Sif Dalid because Sif Dalid came after a question that we asked, and we come to a new beer, or we need a Tiferet beer. What's the beer in Sif Gimel without Sif Dalid? So with Pashtus, in Sif Gimel, the Hasbara is like this. The Eibishter wants a dira b'tachtoinim dafke. Was hat from a dira b'tachtoinim? What's the word of tachtoinim? Because in a tachtoin, before we get to what he gets out of it, but through being mevar a tachtoin, in other words, when there's a helam v'hester nalikus, and we're mevar a helam v'hester, we're mevar a helam v'hester. One second, I can't say that. Give me a second. Yeah, much like that. that when you go to a place where there's a lack of gilui likus, and there you bring a gilui, so let's say there's a certain kunz over here, right? There's a certain chiddush here, and that chiddush is what Atzmos wants, or it makes the Eibishter happy. Uvimela, that's where there's a dir la Atzmos. Masha'enkin in the higher worlds, in the higher worlds where there it's not the kavana. In other words, you don't have atzmos, you just have a certain level of gilui that's shaykh to that oilam. So you have a great gilui likus. But atzmos hot minished. Why? Because atzmos you only get from being memala the Eibishter's rotzin in being mevarer Helen. Being mevarer Helen. Fine. So that's Sif Gimel. Very simple. He comes to the beginning of Sif Dalit and he asks like this. He says, 1 second. If the vart is what makes Olam Haza unique, that you're mevarer Helen, the higher worlds also have Helen. It's not tachlis a Helen, but it's Helen. Meaning in Atzilus there's more Helen. There's more Helen than Keser. In Keser there's more Helen than Akudim. So if we will be in that world and we'll bring down a greater Gilui Elikos into Atzilus than is there on a natural, right, which technically exists. Like in Atzilus there's regular Gilui air, then there's Tisefes air. Right, through our mitzvahs, like we're Moisef Eiris B'Atzilus, right? So if we're bringing more Gilui than there was before, so it's some level of, so there was a helim on a certain oir. The oir that's in Keser is behelim in Atzilus. That cannot be Nizgala here. And now you break through that helim and you bring a greater Gilui oir. There you go. So v'meila, so you did the tachlis hakavan of the Eivish there, which is what? To be mahapich helim into air. To bring oir into a place where it previously did not exist. It's not its natural place. So Taka, there was oir in Atzilus, but only a lower level of oir. Now we're able to bring a greater gilui, whichever the oisis exactly are, and that's it. You made a dir latzmusi. If that's the hasbar, if that's what we need for atzmus to be nizgala, we can do it in Atzilus as well. Who said you need the lowest of the low? You need low. You need tachtim. So here he comes and says, "Ach, inyenu, da kommt und sagt, das Wort." The vart isn't that find Helem and bring a gilui there, or turn on. You have regular lights, and now you bring fluorescent, or you bring what are the new right the white light, LED. Yeah, bring LED lights. it's all good. Right? That's not the vart. You have to come face to face with Helem itself. With Helem, right? It's not a circumstantial Helem, meaning there is some gilui here, but it's not tachlis gilui. I need a greater gilui. No, that's not what's going to come. The vart over here is it's by dealing with Helem, the Helem itself, the workings and the anatomy of Helem, where Atzmos is niskala, and where we come face to face with Atzmos. What's pshat? So here's interesting. As I said, when it comes to dir b'tachtoinim, you can understand dir b'tachtoinim as some level of hasbara, or dir b'tachtoinim is in ganzen. This is what the Atzmos want. Kavan's Atzmos, right? Well, the first hasbara, the hasbara would be the sapcha chashech on the mila of hisapcha, the mila of tzipram deberes of the chiddush, right? Or you say dir b'tachtoinim is that a tyvus can cash in it, right? This is what he wants. This is the type. But then there's another vart, which you have a lot in the Rebbe's Amar and the Rebbe's Sichos, which gives some kind of hasbara, but the hasbara is an asmos dika hasbara. What's the hasbara? And Aבצן, he says this in Basel Lagani Yud Aleph. That the truth is that dir b'tachtoinim could have only happened in Olam Haza. Because the shayla is like this. Nisava Kadosh Baruch Hu like dir b'tachtoinim. Okay. And what if you wanted al yonim? Right? cool, you make a difference. You know, truth is in the Medrash, the original Medrash of the Tachlinim is that the lashon goes like this: Tanchuma, that the Chassidus is always been trying to. That B'shah Shebara Kadosh Baruch Hu Seilom, when the Eibusha created the world, Nisave Sheyadur Batachtoinim K'moy Shadar B'Elyonim. Right, that's the lashon. So first of all, there's a few chidushim here. In other words, chidushim, very different than. First of all, it's not the reason for creating the world. It's as the process already started. The world's already being created. Yeah, the world's already being created. And the Eibusha looks at this world and he's like, one second, the Elyonim are a pretty cool place. There I'm very comfortable. It's Gilei Likos. But Eilam HaTachtein is the hell of a hester. It's a disconnect. I want a home there as well, right? I want a vacation home also in Eilam Haz. But Chassidus and the Hasbar is for a different time. Chassidus learns it that Nisav Dir B'Tachtoinim Dafke. So is it just happen like, okay, he had a taiva concussion it, so part of the concussion it is he wanted tachtin. He could have wanted Atzilus, he could have wanted Kedim Atzimtzum. Chassidus mevayer that the Dir B'Tachtoinim had to be B'Tachtoinim. Why? Because Dafke Oilam Haza Tachtin, Dafke this place can be a dira for Atzmus. There's a very Shmak and Meir, you say this to Kasicha and the Sugya, Yud Shvat, Chilik Tazayin Likut Sichis. The second half of the Sikh is about learning Smicha and Dayanis, somehow that ever goes into that, because that's Dir B'Tachtoinim, about doing Yeri Yadin Yadin. So definitely it's 70 Bachar Sikha, yeah. But the first half is very, very stark Askala, and a very Yisedistic Sikh, a few Sifim there about Havana, how Nisav HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Liyas Lo Yizbarach, Dir B'Tachtoinim, all these four elements are circular, they all lead one to another. And the point is that Dira B'Tachtoinim can only happen B'Tachtoinim. Why? Because Dira is Latzmusei, right? A Dira is only Atzmus has a Dira. Then Kud of Kviyas only exists by Atzmus. Atzmus is only Shoyre B'Tachtoinim. We mentioned earlier that the Giloyim are Mailim ala Etzem, which means that Etzem and Giloyim are two different languages. Right? It's two different languages. Giloyim can't be toifes etzem. Right, so let's say in the context of Gilui Likos, so Giloyim, what's Giloyim? Giloyim is Seichel and Midas, understanding Gadlus Abayra, appreciating the Eibishter's Milas, the Eibishter's Bligvol. Alikos, everything about Alikos is Giloyim. Now that's what's felt and expressed, and the bittul that exists in all the nivroim or netzalim in the higher worlds, in the Eilam Esaruchniim, Eilam Esalyoinim, that's what they connect with, right? They're bottled to the Eibishter because they see the Gadlus Habayra, Maram Masecha, Magalu Masecha. And then there's Atzmus. Atzmus is what is the etzem etzias of the Eibishter, beyond any description and beyond any connection and any milas and any appreciation for him, just his etzem etzias. In the Ilmas Halyoinim, they don't have a shaykhis. They don't connect, and there's no context for the whole discussion about Atzmos. Right? Because they have a relationship. When you have a relationship with somebody, when you're connecting with somebody, so you're connecting to the Giluyim. Right? And that's what's Begiluyim there. Obviously, it's a Zachtifer, and the Oilimis, they are Oir, and Oir is Dalvik to the Moir. It's the higher level of Oir, and the higher level and Moir. Their whole conversation, their whole connection is in the Sprach of Giluyim. Mashenkin Etzem, the Etzem is Nivdom in a Giluyim. Right? They don't appreciate the Etzem. They don't, they handeln sich nicht mit Etzem. Mashenkin Eilam Hazeh. So what happens in Eilam Hazeh? Eilam Hazeh, so there's no Giluyim. There's no Giluyim. And where does Eilam Hazeh come from? Dafke Atzmos, which is Mitzusim Atzmos, only he can create Atzmos. Here, so there's a few points. Basically, there's 3-4 different ways how to approach this Indian in different Sikhs of Mamar. So one union is that Ilam Hazeh can be created only from Mitziyosei Me'atzmosei, only Misha Ein Le'ila B'Siba can create Ilam Hazeh Ein Le'ila B'Siba. That's number one. Number two is because there's no hergish here, and because the Seichel and Midas is Ruchnius. But in the Ilam Hazeh there's no Giloyim. So when there's no Giloyim, there's nothing to be Mailam on the Etzem. Right? Just like a little child, a little baby, when there's no Giloyim, there's no Seichel, there's no Midas, so the Etzem is Begiloy, right? What do you have in a child? Life. There's a whole discussion. The ganze Welt hat sich übergekehrt last week. The two babies, that's not what happened. So people were asking, like this it's a massive tragedy. Like what? There were thousands of people killed and hundreds of hostages, and like what's the word? It's just an emotional thing. But there's a certain nekuda that young children, like little babies, the Geloyim don't get in the way, right? You see the etzem of life, the etzem anisham. You see the etzem achayis. Nocha nekuda is that because there's no oyer here whatsoever, so in order to bring a gilui oyer into this world, it has to come through a complete ishapcha. What's that ishapcha? In the higher world, you can say, okay, there's a lower level of oyer, and there's not a greater gilui oyer that was in a hechra. So what do you have to do now? You have to be megala a deeper oyer. Megala tifre darge. But it's gilui ahelim. You're megala something that's there. You just have to find ways to express it. Mashiach Ilam Hazeh, there's no gilui whatsoever. It's complete helim. So what do you need here? You have to be mechader something betzem yesh meyayin. It's almost like it doesn't exist bichlal. In order to mechader something yesh meyayin, you need koyach ha'etzem, right? Only atzmos could be mechader, just like only atzmos could create yesh meyayin. So only koyach ha'atzmos can give us the koyach down here in this world to do yesh meyayin, which is to bring a gilui likus in the world. There's no shaychas to gilui likus. Now, when we say there's no gilui likus, he says there's no gilui likus. There's a helim even on etzem. What's the helim even on etzem? Etzem is always begilui. So, Shaz, what do we mean by etzem is begilui? And this is also the word that in this maimer, it seems that Mashmal says that etzem is begilui in the higher worlds. Only in this world it's not begilui. We say that in the higher worlds there's no shaychas. So, what are we saying? The gilui and not gilui. So if we're just a few minutes ago they said, if we're speaking about what's the sprach? What's the sprach? The Olam Yisrael Yoinim. The Olam Yisrael Yoinim is no sprach of etzem. The sprach is gilui, right? That's the sprach. That's what they relate to. That's what they say. That's what they see. Right? Adults sitting in the room. What do we talk? We talk seichel. We talk midas. That's our conversation. That's where our minds are. That's where our hearts are. That's our dem lichtmen. Shaking with little kids, so what's the conversation? What's the communication with little children? Ava atzmis, right? The ava atzmis comes out to little kid much more because that's where dartin is etman etzim. But leidach, when we say that the etzim is here, what do we mean that the etzim is here? Aliba the emes etzim is here, but it's not here. Begilui. Begilui means, do we in this world, in the atzmi of Olam Hazeh, right? In the yeshus of Olam Hazeh, in the ego of Olam Hazeh, we see the Eibush there. The whole idea of Olam Hazeh, what's the Mitzvah of Olam Hazeh? Let's say the human ego. The human ego is, someone comes over to me and hurts me. How you talking? Right, before I start rationalizing and I do my avodah and I should feel bad, it hurts. Does mir get checked? Someone offends me. It's a natural response that we all have. Now, where do we have this ego from? Our ego comes, right, it's from the first Maimer Tezayin, Rosh Hashanah, our Mitzusim Matzmusi, it comes from the Eivsh's Mitzusim Matzmusi. But that's the truth. That's not the hergish. That's not the gilui by us down here. By us, in Olam Hazeh, without seichel, without midas, the human ego, and the choimer hagasmi of Olam Hazeh shreit ani v'afsiyoid. There's no gilui, not mimale, not soiviv, not atzmos. Not atzmos. Yes, once people start thinking Once people start some sort of emotion, some sort of hergish, then ein chanami. Then they're able. Then they find. They find the psak gilui alikos and nachmer. They could see that in the mitzvus me'atzmusay itself. Where does it come from? It comes from mitzvus of atzmus. But that's already the next step. But the first step that we have here, the natural response in the Ilam Haza is, and you have to see, no, there's no Eibishter. Right? Einay matzu. Now, so we have two opposites going on in Ilam Haza. On the one hand, what's the sprach in Ilam Haza? Etzem. There's no sprach of Giluyim. Right? Etzem, it's Etzem existence. That's what ego is. Ego is the conversation of ego is, well, what is ego? Ego is I exist. Doesn't make any sense. Oh, you have people that have great projects, have great ideas, can turn over the world, and their ego just gets in the way. Right? They want some attention, they want some cover. Like what are you doing? You literally can do so much. Ego, akasha. Ego doesn't have an isbar. It has kasha, right? That's the whole idea of ego. Ego just is. It's not rational. So on the one hand, the sprach of Olam Haza is etzem. But which etzem? The etzem the way we understand it, not etzem of the Eibishter. The etzem of the Eibishter is v'tachas hahelam. So the etzem of the Eibishter is v'tachas hahelam in this world. But dafke, the etzem of the Eibishter drickt sich ois in der Welt and not in any other world, because any other world, even though the etzem is not behelim, because people are in touch with the Eibishter and they recognize the Eibishter, but they don't think about, or they don't, right? It's not their heart by the etzem because they're in the world of Giluyim. So the whole context of etzem is not in their world. They don't speak that sprach of etzem. And Ilam Hazim meant the sprach from etzem, but just we mistranslate it. We think when we hear etzem, we think my ego, my mitzias, and not the emes, which is that's the Eibusher's existence. But that's the avodah that dafke this in this world where there is etzem, just we associate it with Yesha Nivra, not with Yesha Amiti. Through avodah in this, so because in this world it's not about Giluyim, it's about etzem. So esrirt on etzem, right? So here we're dealing with etzem. We're dealing with etzem energy. So v'meila, once we remember the etzem, so once a person works on himself and comes to hakar that's sto neibeshrafenfeld. 1 second. So where did my ego come from? How does my ego exist? The mitzvusei me'atzmusei can only come from mitzvusei me'atzmusei ha'amiti. The yesh ha'nivra is emes mitzvus is yesh ha'amiti, right? And then all of a sudden, so they're greich atzmus. You're able to greich atzmus because you're dealing with etzem, where the etzem is behelim. So, right, the true etzem is behelim, but etzem is here because that's the sprach of Elam Haza etzem. That's one. And another ifin is that dafka being mevarer something that has no shaykhis klal uklal. That comes through the koyach ha'atzmos, which gives us the koyach to be mahapich, chashaychel and hoyer, and completely and so when we take choshech or mahapich el we take something that is no gilui likus whatsoever, and we're able to be megala dir likus. How is such a thing possible? How could we have two hafchim? But then that's a gilui of etzem that only etzem enables. It can enable such a thing. But I don't know if you have to go there for this. The more the first nekuda. So that's the vart here that mevert that dir lat smusay through being mevar etzem. So ebazay kum desday that sif dalid and sif hey the vart is there's a helm and a likus. Oh, you brought a gilui there, amazing. You did a chiddush here. There's a chiddush here. Ebazay the chiddush not only in the lower world, there's a chiddush in the higher world. Okay, the ultimate chiddush is in this world. I don't need the ultimate chiddush. Any chiddush is good, right? You get 10 points for trying. You did a chiddush. You already did it great. But according to Zidal, the vart not a chiddush. Or the chiddush, not the chiddush in the context of that I did something, I added something that wasn't here, right? I brought oil into a place, or a higher level of oil into a place that it wasn't before. The vart over here is that only in a place of etzem, can I be megala atzmos. The higher worlds, even the lower ones of the higher worlds, where there's a helam hester, but it's not a helam of etzem. It's giluyim. It's just lower levels of giluyim. So because it's a world of Giluyim, and Giluyim I can't be Mamshech Etzem. Dafka Elam Haza, which is the world of Etzem, only here mitapt Atzmos, what's the last one? Mirit on in Atzmos, so therefore become Megala Mamshech Atzmos and Megala Atzmos.